Noise. The whir of the machine. A sieve ends up where no one's ever gone before. A peace deal fucks up someone's aura. Endless streams of horses push the land. They dance around the bang, the lock, the pop. It's sounding like 6 in the morning, sun rising outside. Battles on the ground, better choose a side. Hail Mary hit on the ride or die. Buckle up, people, the time is nigh. This is the Civilization Battle Royale X, Season 5, Episode 13, The Empty Dream Machine. The intercom in the Babylonian cybersub rings and crackles. An announcement is to take place. The leaders sit pretty across the non-Euclidean hallways and corridors of the ever-expanding vessel. The speaker rings. Hello everyone, my name is JDT-1706, and welcome to the latest episode of Civ Battle Royale X5. I'll be your guide through the lands of mystics and mystery, of pain and pleasure, and best of all, where AI is not just a buzzword, but an actual living, breathing personality, a projection of our fears, hopes, and desires in a bloody coliseum of over a decade-old strategy game. It's an honor to narrate this episode, and without further ado, let's get started. First up, we got the latest episode of Church of the Cylinder by Orange. The Teotihuacan-Pomo War has been a real disappointment, but at least we got this comic. Next up, we got our latest map, courtesy of Sonic Fan. These maps are always well appreciated, and always give excellent overviews over the state of the cylinder in any given moment. Before we get on going, we have to give a shout out to the Ko-Fi supporters. Thank you for your support. We won't be here without you. We must appreciate the statistical dominance that the Tlingit have been imparting on the cylinder. If you take a look at the stat sheet, they have dominant leads in every single relevant category. The question now is, can they hold on to that lead? Plutarco Elisa Calles shouldn't be a great general. The erstwhile vagabond didn't know how he ended up in the middle of Asia, surrounded by people in a city-state he never knew of. But it didn't matter. They paid him. It was his lot. He thought of, perhaps, pulling a coup against Shin Salbu, the ever-incompetent leader of Dagon. But then he looked at his troops. A recruit had just stabbed himself with a spear. Another just ran straight into a mountain. And the Yunnanese look on and laugh. He sighed. It's going to be a long day. Enemies close in on the Ethiopian city of Adama. On one hand, there's the insatiable juggernaut of the Ores, continually looking for new victims and new regions of expansion. On the other, the erstwhile underdogs of Zazao, looking to struggle their way back to relevance after getting clocked in the jaw by Wasulu early in the game in a move of mutual self-destruction. The city shall fall. The only question is who will receive it, the villain or the hero? The Luba-Herero War sees some level of progress, as the Herero managed to encircle the Luba city of Kabongo, giving some tangible chance of actual progress in the war. The nearby Luba army in the north, however, portends that any progress will be marginal at best. This will be a long one, folks. The Chono Empire has seen nothing but tranquility for decades. No conflicts, no pains, not much expansion. Just vibing with their fish and their seals and such. It's quite the life, really. We can all take an example from the Chono in some ways. Just staying still and appreciating life. We take a look at Central Europe, focusing on the Wallachian town of Turku. Being battered by Hanseatic troops, the peasants are trapped in the walls, unable to work or do anything of note, really. As such, they resort to pure, unadulterated chaos. Man turns on man. Anything on the street was for sale. Cannibalism turned commonplace. Sometimes they can feel the walls talking to them. Meanwhile, in Bucharest, the Council of Vampires laugh from their perches on the palace. Their magic balls have shown the debauchery and desperation of their people. The Scots' initial advantage of the surprise in their assault of Kalmar has all but dissipated. The Kalmar navy is simply superior, having researched compass and found access to the far superior carracks alongside their unique unit of the Gunhulk, a weaker galleass that has double movement through coast. The Scots navy attempts to hold valiantly, keeping on to Aberdeen, but the Kalmar forces slowly approach, intent on reversing the losses inflicted at the beginning of the war. Who will come out on top here? Kauke falls to the forces of the Susquehannock as the other Karankawa settlers in Newfoundland shudder. They heard stories of old Shihe's. They say he throws insubordinate citizens into the water to drown, and that he has no face. But the Susquehannock know not of these rumors. It's just good business, they say to themselves, as more troops march to align Newfoundland into their grasp. We take a look at the Amazon rainforest, where it seems like for generations the Zavante and Potiguara have come to blows. Day after day there is a new battle in the Amazon, deep in the trees and hills and fields and rivers. The blood grows into the eyes of the trees, as the little inches of sun both sides can get are cherished. The leaders wish for no end to conflict. This war will dance forever. The Corral come to blows with the Yanomami over disputes and cacao trade agreements. Unfortunately, if you're a fan of either civ, I must tell you to temper your expectations. There's a very large natural boundary called the Andes that neither civ can actually pass by with units, and it stands as a very big wall between their cities. Au contraire to my expectations, Zazao learnt from their mistakes in the Wasulu War and manages to snipe Adama away from the hands of the Ores. When told about the news, Dihya shied away from her advisors. Her eye sockets seemed like they were about to burst. The nerves pulsated. The ball beckoned. New victims await her wrath. It's almost predictable at this point. Despite zero opposition from the Moravi, the Herero have utterly failed to put any pressure on Tete and Sena. A large part of this can be down to their excessively horseman-oriented army composition, as horses have a penalty on attacking cities. If Marenga was any smarter, he'd probably make a few pikes or swordsmen to accentuate the assault, but that would require him not being a scrub. Uluru had been regarded by the Banuba as a sacred spot for centuries, unused and deliberately kept out of the usage of all but the holiest of priests, to enable the spirits to move. Not anymore. New South Wales has just established Fort Sorrel right next to it, enabling them to work the tile and gain its benefits, especially in faith. The New South Wales miners quickly get to work, inscribing every part of the rock for McGregor's own use. Something about Ma'in just makes Phoenicia lock in for some reason. Manian has fallen back under their grasp, and Ma'in seems to be in no position to try to recontest. All that matters for Ma'in seems to be misery and failure, while Phoenicia just tries to build back through their patented technology of hit Ma'in again. We take a look at the Arctic Circle, where Estonia and Bjarmia have been having a small conflict. A group of Estonian triremes have managed to make the first meaningful attacks either had on each other in decades, arriving at the Bjarmian capital of Vina and pelting it with potatoes. They promptly retreated, mooning the city guard while they're at it. Taking advantage of local smuggling groups, the papacy managed to reflip Castel Gandolfo away from Ores' hands. It's doubtful whether or not this flip can hold, but what is not doubtful is Dihya's temper. Her fever is at its highest pitch. Blood will lay as her crystal ball beckons. Zyozdino Afanasievskoye lay in the red, open to any melee unit's taking, but its approach has been hampered by geography and a lack of grit from the Ket. A single ice tile prevents the city from being captured from the ocean, and the Ket simply do not have any units coming overland to try to take the city, in spite of ample forces across the region. It's a bit frustrating since there's almost no defense from the Vyatka, but hey, that's life. Sir Ka-Tiu has been captured by the Tlingit. I know, I expected it. Essie Parish had seen the writing on the wall, and the Pomo were more than ready to respond. They let the city fall on purpose to weaken out the Tlingit chaff, and their armies are ready on the standby to retake it once the trap of conquest is sprung. The Susquehannock decides that it takes not one, but two to seduce, pushing troops into Karankawa as the Ponca falter. Will they break whatever kumbaya dance the Karankawa had that has stun-locked the Ponca and Teotihuacan? Only time will tell, but in the meantime, there's an advance force besieging Coapite. We get a full look at the core of the Japanese Empire. The citizens labor and work in the fields, satisfied at the extent of the land. But the council of Hideyoshi and his advisors know that Japan is due for more greatness. The war with Green Ukraine is a bit of a wash. However, there may be other targets on the horizon soon enough, even if opportunities look a bit filled up right about now. We move on over to the Scythian Vyatka front, where Scythia has managed to continue their assault against Kilinov. The horde is giant and rowdy. They want to run the spear straight through the head of the people who tried to crush them under their thumb with a yoke. "Patience," yells Adneas. "Our time shall come. The end of the Vyatka draw near. Now, raise your weapons and let us ride." Yunnan's pitiful empire gets a spotlight in all its inglory. A small polity that doomed itself to irrelevance, they are well fortified between the jungles and the mountains, and that's about all they have. Trapped between Tang and Lanfang, with no way to punch back, all that's left is for them to sit around and flounder on as a zombie. It's a bleak existence, really. Samore Ture was prepared for the war. The world hates him. Diha had placed every other leader under a spell that cast her as the hero and him as the villain. But he knows better. He is righteous. He will prevail over the odds. 1,000,000 Ores men are coming to crush him? Fine. Let them come. If this be his end, he will make them work for it. We take a look at Hawaii, now almost entirely controlled by Cebu. Karnapo is the sole holdout, but it is entirely besieged by Cebu triremes, and should fall in due time. The amount of aura Cebu farms every single episode is frankly impressive, and the Hawaii play really is the top of the list for that. It was completely out of left field and surprisingly pertinent. For now, though, they settle on the ashes of that high. Despite a complete lack of opposition, it turns out that all it takes to make Jürgen Wollenweaver, king of the Hansa, give up against Wallachia is an agreement of an undisclosed amount of gold per turn, provided in perpetuity upon the non-bankruptcy of the Wallachian peoples. Of course, the Wallachians have zero idea on what a gold, or money, is, so for all they know, they basically made the Hansa give up on a war for no reason. What a choke! Koyam continues to hold on fast, a shining city on the hill, with the local citizens continuing to smuggle in amenities and smuggle out citizens from nearby Calque. The Susquehannock are aware of this insubordination, but currently there have been a grand wave of purges within their military institutions, placing military plans in disarray for any reprimand. And so, Koyam stays on, safely in Karankawa hands. The Scots are barely holding on to Aberdeen. After the initial momentum of their assault on Kalmar, the Kalmar are striking back hard, giving us a look into the future of naval warfare with their devastating mix of gun hulks and carracks and putting Aberdeen in the black. The Scots' own navy attempt to put a hold on the front, but given the Kalmar's technological advantage, this may be something that proves a little difficult. Something finally happens in South America. The Guaycuru and Potiguara are duking it out, and it looks like the Potiguara are willing to try to prove they can actually do something. It might take a while, though, given the size of Guaycuru's army in hand, and it may perhaps spell the end of their current enclave disconnect situation if they don't act fast. Also, off-screen, the Ores decide they want to try to kill the Wasolu again, with Sumer in tow, mesmerized by Ores' spells. Linlithgow somehow continues to hold on. The wily village of Scots is the last evidence of their existence on Scandinavia, an odd and very interesting colony that now, ultimately, is pointless. By all logic, it should be long gone, with Kalmar setting up catapults, melee units, and carracks to take the city easily. But somehow, it still stands. An ephemeral city, standing in the snow. Pomo successfully reflips Katuli from Tlingit hands, sending a strong force to protect the city from further attacks from the north. Yet another kerfuffle brews in the east. The Anishinaabe are mounting up a solid invasion force around Milwaukee and Waitanong, preparing to mount an assault of their own in the near future. Complacency from the Pomo in this moment will be nothing short of devastating. Yet another Luba Herrero war ended ignominiously. Is this really the destiny of these two to juke for eternity despite never fucking each other over solidly? Scythia begins to make further progress deeper into Viatkan territory. Kilnov almost in the black, with the Scythian hordes swarming all over their lands. The Viatka have seemingly resigned themselves to losing their capital and all lands south of the Arctic Circle. Troops pulling back to a salient near Orlov. This will be a tough campaign, potentially even an existential one for the Viatka. Castel Gandolfo falls back into Ores' hands. With Ores' reinforcements seemingly covering the city well, Julius goes to his chapel in the Lateran Palace and bows in prayer. Our greatest god Horus, hear ye my prayer. Give us the strength and power to hold our cities against these intruders. He offers a quail and bushels of wheat in sacrifice, and walks out back into the greater apostolic chambers. There are levels to the game, and this slide shows it. The Ores are barely trying, having dedicated most of their units to their other forever wars in Ethiopia and the Papacy. And yet, their carpet in this slide is not that far behind the entirety of Wasolo's military. This complacency shows the contempt of Diya towards Samori Ture. He's not even an ant in her eyes. He fueled her future, and now he shall enter her past. The crew of the Highlander looked on with awe. Many of these men have only just gotten onto the boat, and yet they have never before seen one such as the Kalmar carracks or gunhulks. Twice the size of their dinghies and twice their firepower, the crew trembled as the cannon ring loud in their ears. The ship is on its last legs, holes on the rigging and rudder. The water is taking on, but the captain had given the orders, take it to our graves. We take a quick gander away from the action to take a look at the Kipchaks. The Corky horsemen are doing very fine, all things considered, especially after the insanity of their start and the pressure placed on them recently by Bactria and Viatka. After such a tumultuous beginning, this piece truly is what all good horsemen strive for, an opportunity to grow and actually scale unimpeded by war. Cebu officially caps off its very, very unexpected acquisition of a new holiday home in Hawaii. The Pomo swordsman in the slide might be able to secure a flip or two, but the overwhelming presence of Cebuano naval forces should prevent any long-term losses in the region. The only question left for Cebu is, where next? In a very shocking development, Estonia has somehow managed to flip Rostock towards them, another chance for Lennart to try to make up for his original butt fumble of a war several episodes back. To see if he can hold on to this, however, he'll first need to roll a big volition check in the midst of overwhelming Hanseatic reinforcements. In not-so-shocking news, nothing of note has happened thus far in the umpteenth Maine-Phoenician War. If you don't pay attention, you can barely tell there is any war at all. The The Red Sea is fully blue, and neither civ has the troops to commit to an actual conflict. We take a full look over the state of Portugal. It's a fine state of things, considering how disastrously the war with France went a few episodes ago, and how hemmed in they are between France and the Ores. While their navy is more prominent than their army, there's a decent enough military force on the mainland to contest any attempts at incursion. João had firmly beaten the lazy allegations last episode by successfully conquering cities from Wasolo. What remains to be seen is if there's anyone else he can actually do that to. The Scots managed to overcome the awe of the Kalmar's more advanced ships and reflip Aberdeen. The Kalmar have more ships at hand, but trying to play into home turf will be a much harder task than they may have expected, in spite of Scottish technological inferiority. Kilinov falls to Scythia as the hordes raze their lands. The fire and fury from Ateas and her troops stand unopposed to Viatkan movements. In celebration, they take a giant brazier of weed and blaze it up together, a citywide celebration for what is looking like a knockout blow in their grand campaign eastwards. Dangu was, at some point in a time immemorial, a Benuban city settled as the keystone to its ambitions to the Pacific. The current Chono populace, however, know not this history. All they know is that one day they got there, somewhere in between the Great Empty and their colony to the west. The Viatka managed to overcome Scythian assaults to retake Kilinov thanks to an empathic display from their cavalry. It is a losing battle, though, as the Scythian hordes are endless and the Viatkan reinforcements are limited. All these brave cavalrymen can do is hunker down and hold for the scantest hope of survival and recognition for their heroics. Mystical forces have given to Babula a divine revelation. Ternate cannot grow. This be their fate and lot, lest they suffer the consequences. If anything, they must thank the Corral for providing their lot. As such, despite there being no way for Corral to reach the city, Dodinga was provided entirely to them by Ternate in a peace deal. Not satisfied with merely one city, the Roran continue their unopposed push into Ukrainian territory, surrounding Nikolaevskole with an army big enough to make a sandworm blush. These wriggling riders want to thrash and crash across the sand, besieging the hapless green Ukrainians as Yuri Hlushko crawls in his palace into a fetal position, under zero pressure. The Scots settle Cromarty just north of the Isles, somehow squeezing another city into a region that can barely support what it has. It's really a bleak city if you think about it, just a gray, cold landmass with nothing but fish around them. Grace O'Malley certainly isn't happy about this development, as it's right on top of her empire, but she's not in the mood for war. Especially not against Mary, that beautiful devil. She just needs to think about what to do to get to the bottom of things. The Teotihuacan find themselves with an unlikely ally in the assault of Bida Miwana. A trireme from Cebu has decided to traverse the Pacific Ocean straight through to the city borders, intent on helping out Spear Thrower Owl. All they requested was a portion of the booty. Why not? Surely this may help against them. While the front against the Tlingit has stabilized, Tlingit troops petering out, the Pomo aren't safe yet. From the west, the Anishinaabe, led by erstwhile General Geronimo, have launched a well-supported assault to take over Kadiu. Geronimo was plucked straight out from the depths of the Babylonian cybersub to serve this task for Pontiac, a small favor from one rebel to another. He remembered his days as a leader himself, fighting and scrapping against the likes of the Haida and Venezuelans all those years ago. A small sigh. Those were the days. And now a chance to relive just a touch of that. In a remarkably fast development for South America, the Guaycurú successfully secure the long-standing Potiguaran exclave of Cachira, eliminating some of the border corps that has plagued the Pampas for centuries. If you ask them there, it is honestly more of a cause of jubilation than sadness. They've been cut off from Potiguara for far too long, and at this point are more culturally aligned with the Guaycuru. Castel Gandolfo flips back to the papacy. Its flips have been so common that it's honestly less of a battle and more of a natural phenomenon. On some occasions, you can find cardinals and noblemen of both sides standing on the sidelines and watching over the battle, basking themselves on the beach as the blood of their soldiers run red into the sea. At times, the most unholy of folk can even be seen placing bets on how many casualties occur on a given day. We get a good look at the Zavante Corps right in the middle of the Amazon. The beleaguered rebels make every stand possible against the overwhelming odds, turning their little enclave in the Amazon into a fairly nice place to live, despite the constant wars and such. We also get a look at Nina Simone, an incredible musician and civil rights advocate in real life, as she plays the blues in the middle of their jungle tunes. The Wasolo managed to make a shocking turnaround in the war against the Ores, flipping Medina against all the odds and leaving a bloody lip on the face of their overwhelming oppressor. When an advisor came to Diha's tent to tell the news, he was shocked by the sight. The messenger that told her that was dead. The tithe for Wasolu shall be paid in blood. Corral, wanting to convey their statistical advantages into actual tangible progress, launch an assault on the Zavante. Unfortunately for them, they forgot that you need to have more than a few troops to actually take cities, even against someone as overextended as the Zavante. Meanwhile, Apoena merely sighed. To him, this is just another juvenile attempt at aggression and rage bait. It isn't even the most pressing war in the past week. The extent of Humabon's refusal to settle new cities is best exemplified in this slide. Somehow, Cebu has rolled a 0 in settling bias, with Tang being able to settle Songzhou in the north of Luzon, an insult to Cebu's pride. Humabon, however, has just the cure to one-up Taizong's tomfoolery. An aura emanates from the Cebu capital towards the rest of the cylinder. A small pulse strikes the heart of all the leaders in the world, as if something is off. A tiny, black pulse. A strange energy that beckons, "Bow down to me." But for the average person, this is imperceptible. All they see is jubilation in the creation of Borobudur, the dedication of a monument to Humabayon's glorious conquests, and the spreading of his religion. "We'll see about that," mutters Taizong. The year is 2000 BC. Estonia just made peace with the Biarmians. No cities were exchanged. The year is 1120 AE. Estonia just made peace with the Biarmians. No cities were exchanged. In the future, the Biarmians shall once more make peace with the Estonians. No cities shall be exchanged. While the Ores and Papacy are trading barbs over Castel Gandolfo on a daily basis, the Franco-Papal front has proven to be remarkably stagnant, the Pyrenees Mountains and France's lack of a Mediterranean fleet preventing them from making any meaningful progress. Robespierre does, however, send a rosy letter to Dihya, proclaiming that together they shall trample on the blood of all the false icons and fools that dare mess with the world. It fails to cheer her spirits. The Japanese troops in Hiroshima successfully repel a very half-hearted and weak attempt from Green Ukraine to assault the city. Really, in some ways, this war between them is a dance between two lovers who have no love with each other. No commitment, no talking things out, just cold stonewalling. And honestly, Ukraine isn't really keeping their bed clean either. It's not exactly impressive over there, guys. We take a look at the Sumatran core of Lanfang, particularly in the south. Lanfang has been vibing and chilling, still building up and licking wounds from the assault on Banuba, encompassing a decent stat line and a strong carpet. We also get to see the isolated Mysore territory of Dharwad, a locale where, uniquely, the locals wind up speaking more Hakka or Hokkien than Tamil. A war between Sumer and Pakistan erupts again, Jinnah eager to prove that the improvements he's been making to his nation will convert into hard power and growth. Unfortunately for him, the Alborz Mountains and Sumer's surprisingly good tech line means that this war will probably go nowhere, especially since Pakistan's troops aren't too prepared themselves. A wide shot at the Potewara Corps reveals two important things. Firstly, it seems that despite declaring the war, the Potewara are firmly on the back foot against the Guaycuru, with the majority of their forces still in the north. Secondly, the Xavante are making a strong push. Aberdeen gets flipped again in spite of Scottish ships in the ready to flip it back. It's standard protocol at this point. Couldn't the Kalmars spread their ships out a bit? This bit is getting a little old. Okay, this is getting absurd. Teotihuacan, what is going on? The Sonoran corridor is wide open, and yet not a single unit dares intrude onto Pomo territory. Elem is a big choke point, yes, but the entire Salt Lake Basin is wide open. Is this some sort of curse placed by the Pomo on their sands? Oh, I'm getting word from Coq d'Ajal. Apparently, there's a curse or something in the works. Something like, "Thou shalt falter in these harsh sands that blow south," or something. And it's solely for Teotihuacan, because their ancestral mother spirit hates the warrior spirit of their people? Ah, understandable then. After a whole load of nothing ever happens, the Yanomami Corral War ends with absolutely nothing happening. The two civilizations celebrate this absolute nothing burger by drinking fifths of chicha and dancing in jubilation in the mountains, unable to remember why they even fought to begin with. Simultaneously, the Ket peace out with the Vyatka, unwilling to spend the effort to actually try to retake Zyudino Afanasievskoye or pressure Shestakov. The Vyatka breathe a sigh of relief as one of their pressures is out for now. I wonder if Yoan Anikiev Mishkin regrets not remembering how grand his empire was before the Scythians cleaved straight through it. Leventriberia and the Anishinaabe are on the verge of completing the first objective of their relentless push west. Kadiu is in the black, and a pikeman is perfectly positioned to pull the flip. He dreams of all the people he can requisition for his personal use when the city is Anishinaabe. He dreams of dungeons and all who have ever wronged and doubted him. He dreams of doom and death forevermore. His thoughts wrench the living and dead alike, but they are merely thoughts, he thinks. We get a small look at the bottom of the barrel of the cylinder as we get an exhilarating shot of the Yunnan Pegu War. As Yunnanese horsemen actively trip and fall on themselves outside Dagon, Shin Sabu comes out of the palace with a very important announcement. The people are gathered all around. "My dearest subjects, I am very pleased to announce that we have achieved peace." Jubilation erupts. Lovers kiss and brothers cry. Perhaps they can finally know peace again and return to normalcy instead of the surrealism of a Yunnanese siege. With Circassia! The jubilation stops. All that's left are a sea of blank-eyed faces. What's a Circassia? We return to the Herero-Moravi front to see that literally nothing has changed. Is this actually an elaborate staging of waiting for Godot? Should I become Pozzo? Should I try to recruit someone to become Lucky? Should I sing and dance and shout and pout until something actually happens here? Bah, they won't matter. Godot is not arriving tonight. As we see from the pop-up, the Tang have decided to try to see how hard Cebu's aura really is, and decided to test them. Taizong's folly might be present most obviously in the newly settled colony of Songzhou, Despite having just settled down in the Philippines, the Tang decide they can use it as a forward base southwards, a bold strategy given the high Cebuano troop buildup just southwards. Don't be surprised if the city flips. On the other hand, there is reason to believe that the Tang may have smart decision-making on their hands after all. Shuri is completely surrounded by Tang troops, a sneak attack Cebu certainly did not prepare for. Whether or not that force can pierce 29 city defense is highly debatable, but let it be known the Tang do at least have a plan and an objective. Medina falls back into the grasp of the Ores, the Wasolu firmly on the back foot again. The blood drips out from the riversides as the Ores give swift retribution to all who sympathize with the Wasolu. Back in Bisandugu, Samori Ture summons all his generals and advisors. He presents them a sword and a small bag. If you choose the bag, we end this charade and end the war with the Ores right now, no matter the cost. But if you choose the sword, we will go on fighting to our last, even if it costs every inch of our bodies. We take a look at the Susquehannock Corps, now seemingly at peace and uninterested at gunning after the Karankawa. Between the impressive, if somewhat backwards, carpet, we get to meet John Andrews, the great architect who, in our reality, is best known for designing the CN Tower. In this reality, he is still trying to build new and unique monuments for the usage of the Susquehannock, including a giant bird, which serves as a new town hall in Lawisakuk. Oh, that is interesting. The Zivante have thoroughly citadeled the Guaycuru city of Mision El Toba, leaving it very vulnerable to a straightforward assault if needed. Of course, on the other hand, you can just as easily argue that this move is going to provoke a Guaycuru response, just as they are working together to take down the Potiguara. But surely international land grabs like these don't matter, right? Right? The Anishinaabe make the flip of Kariu. However, the Pomo have had ample time to prepare a very sizable relief force nearby. This is going to be an interesting flipfest that shows no sign of stopping anytime soon. Several turns from when we last saw it, Nikolaevskole is still in remarkably good shape considering the invasion force intruding within it. I think the defense has been so lethargic that the Roran have been left chasing ghosts, distracting them from actually marching into the city to deal damage. Sumer manages to pull a very surprising upset, retaking Kish from Pakistani control in the midst of their carpet, and in spite of the logistical difficulties of the mountains and Eanatum's wife. Now, whether or not they can keep it is a whole nother problem, but if nothing else, it does show some signs of life from Sumer, long after we had called them completely out for the count. Volition, 12. Failure. That city is not for you, Lennart. You know it. You will never be anything more than a sniveling, snot-nosed loser. Your people will remember you for nothing but surrender, and that's it. That's all you'll ever be, for now and forever. The ghosts of the past will terrorize you like a Jungian specter, an endless circus of fools and fuck-ups. Rostock flips back to the Hansa. Katu begins to start seeing some real pressure being applied to it between the Zivante archers and the Guaycuru Haliaganek. It's truly remarkable just how badly Felipe Camarao miscalculated. He is losing a war he himself declared, and he has no one to blame but himself for this embarrassment. The Ponca stare outside the outskirts of the Karankawan Corps. The forces are more than numerous enough to be able to take over the pittance of the Karankawa, but strangely, the men do not move at all. White Eagle goes to the front to investigate, and to his disappointment, all he sees are his troops dancing, laughing, at times even playing jokes with the enemy. What is this insubordination? We just can't. They're our brothers. They gave us our homelands back, so we have the duty to keep theirs. White Eagle returns home in anger. What a bunch of losers. Kadiu flips back into Pomo hands, with the Anishinaabe seemingly completely unprepared for a reconquest. Geronimo is nowhere to be seen, having decided to return to the cybersub after his contract is over. Beria is dead, shot in the streets of Kadiu, long before any of his twisted ambitions can come to light. The Anishinaabe army is in disarray, morale is low, and desire to continue fighting in the gutter. Having grown weary of the settled life, and already very loosely governed and confederal in nature, the Phoenicians decide to become a nomadic horde, Hiram serving as a figurehead for their confederal politics. It is an interesting development for sure, if not very pertinent in the grand scheme of things. To facilitate the storage of the greater-sized boats they researched recently, the Zaragua successfully construct a large series of interlocking canals within their cities, giving greater access to navigation for all ships. Now, I'm personally unsure if it was actually built in Yakimel, given that it is only a 6-pop, 1-tile island city, but it's there somewhere, and it's certainly fitting for them. As it turns out, there was more than a small trireme awaiting in the Pacific. The Ryukyu have sent the majority of their fleet to California to launch a grand raid of Pomo, so confident that the Tang just don't have the cojones to beat them that they are going in on trying to get a North American colony 400 turns earlier than any Asian civ before them. The initial conquest of Bidamiwana was a very confusing one, as they were led not by Teotihuacan conquerors, but by a people utterly foreign and alien to them, and Spear Thrower Owl was furious when he learned that he has been denied another city by his very own allies. I also implore you to potentially keep an eye on Potol. While most of Pomo's other cities are just too insulated by geography to expect another flip from Cebu, Potol has 3 naval tiles and potentially just low enough city strength to contest it, especially with the size of Cebu's navy. Unsatisfied with the gains of merely Uluru and wanting to get past the Great War, New South Wales drops another citadel against Banuba, stealing several salt flats and a copper tile from Darling Naya. This all works towards the grand design that McGregor ultimately wants to punch at: total elimination of the Banuba. Their economy is theirs, their faith is theirs. Soon their cities will fall too. None shall stand in the way of the great procession of drunkards. Taking a break from the horrors of Castel Gandolfo, we get a small look at the papal contingent in Greece, led by Hiroshi Yamauchi. The great merchant has found quite the business entertaining the troops with unique sets of cards. He's especially proud of his own mascots of Mario and Luigi, 2 brightly colored jesters and carpenters who love going on adventures, and he especially loves making new tales about them. Oftentimes they are performed as puppet theater, the audience having the opportunity to see if they can defeat the evil Queen Dia by the end of the adventure. Or maybe they instead use a rock as a ball. We move on back to the Great Finnish Nothing, where Estonia attempts to roll a savoir-faire check against the Kalmar city of Vasa. Unfortunately, Lennart doesn't realize that attacking the city isn't a dialogue option that's currently open, and he needs to at least park up that catapult before he stands a chance of actually doing damage. We move on back to see a full shot of the Zazao Corps. Ethiopia is mounting up an offensive to attempt to retake Adama, and possibly more from the witty Zazao. However, as we can see, the Zazao have managed to make a very respectable comeback from getting whacked by Wasulu early in the game. They have a full carpet and pretty decent city defense all over. It will take a lot more than that to try to pierce them. We take a small look at a part of the world that is currently somewhat irrelevant. Japan has just settled Nagoya in what I think are the Marshall Islands, with another settler in tow to settle Guam. While irrelevant right now, if city growth patterns develop just right, this could cut off Cebu's connection to Hawaii and their American colonies. Humabon should keep an eye out for these developments. Shuri looks to be in a little more trouble than expected, with the Tang surrounding the city in units and Cebu's reinforcements looking rather slim, consisting primarily of 2 triremes and 2 embarked Timawas, who have amphibious by default. In the meantime, Tang has a veritable army prepared for a naval invasion, including 4 triremes and a forbidden guard stationed in Taiwan to take potshots. The saving grace for Cebu are 2 things. Firstly, 29 city defense is pretty decent, and should hold up fairly well against the entire assault, especially since there's only 1 ranged unit taking potshots. And secondly, many of the embarked units are horsemen, which, assuming most of these units don't have amphibious, means that repeated assault will be especially unproductive. Still, this is a large source of worry for Cebu, given that Shuri is the heart of their growth efforts. Aberdeen falls back into Scottish hands, for good this time, as Kalmar and Scotland make peace. All in all, this war wound up a success for Scotland, trading 1 useless city in the Arctic for 2 Kalmar cities in the Faroes, locking down the North Sea for them for the foreseeable future. Now, if only they can actually finish researching Compass and get access to Carracks and Gallius's. We quickly address the elephant in the room as Bactria gets a tiny shot, having citadeled their way through half of Sigunak and filled it with elephantarchies. The Kipchaks must not be feeling too good, as their position has just been left wide open for a potential Bactrian assault. Can they even afford retribution at this point in time? The Pomo's recapture of Kadiu proves to be enough for the Anishinaabe to give up on the relentless push west, opting instead to make peace. The Pomo aren't finished with their wars, the Cebu, Teotihuacan, and Tlingit all still posing tangible threats. But nevertheless, this is a good victory for them, one they sorely need in light of the losses in the Pacific. We've been focusing a lot on the western half of the Anishinaabe this episode, but what of the east? We get to see a large lakeside navy standing off tensely with the Onondaga snow blanket to the east. A prominent DMZ has been established across the Penobabacong, but there's no guarantee that either side would be willing to keep it, especially not the Onondaga, with that heavily pointed carpet of theirs. We take a very good look at Greenland, a multicultural polity divided by a variety of different civs from all over. We got Scots, Onondaga, Tlingit, Susquehannock, and Karankawa settlements, all on different sides of the island, and you really cannot make any logical sense of where Scotland and Karankawa wound up popping their cities. While some of their polities have been in constant wars against each other on the mainland, the Greenlanders have no use for war. In the harsh snows, there is no enemy. We end the episode on a shot of the Hyksos, fresh off their peace deal with Wallachia. They don't really do much, having not bothered to move a single unit for any meaningful combat thus far. You know it, I know it, we all know it. There really isn't much left to say that hasn't already been said for the past few episodes. Anyhow, my name is JDT1706, and thank you for watching the show. And if I don't see you again, good evening, good luck, and good night. The intercom rings out into the cybersub again. This time the voice was scratchy and old. The ghost that had been putting on the weekly radio show went ghost.
Fine ladies and gentlemen, and all in between. I regret to inform you that the cafeteria is temporarily out of donuts. Please hold your cravings for them until next week. Thank you, and sorry for the inconvenience.
The Grand Hall of Leaders groan in procession.